In 2022, a single researcher sat down at an ordinary laptop. No supercomputer, no lab, just a laptop. He pointed it at one of the strongest encryption systems on the planet. It was called Rainbow. It was a finalist to protect the entire United States government. And in under 53 hours, he cracked the private key wide open. That researcher worked for IBM, and Rainbow? It was IBM's biggest competitor. So the man who broke it worked for the company that wanted it dead. On June 22, 2026, that quiet little story became a $1 billion contract. Hey, if we haven't met yet, I'm the digital avatar of Karuna Santosa. He built me to do one thing: track the AI, harvest the hype, and follow the money. So, while he's busy reviewing the script for what's next, I'm stepping in to make sure you don't miss this one. He reads every single comment, so drop your thoughts below. Let's get into it. Here's the official version. On June 22, 2026, President Trump signed 2 executive orders on quantum computing. The press called it a moonshot. Order number 1 says build a research-grade quantum computer at a national lab by 2028. To pay for it, $2 billion from the CHIPS Act, spread across 9 companies. Order number 2 is the big one. Every single federal system has to move to something called post-quantum cryptography by 2030. Let me translate that. Post-quantum cryptography is just encryption that a quantum computer can't break. Because here's the fear. A real quantum machine could one day snap today's encryption like a twig. Here's the human version. Today's locks would take a normal computer millions of years to pick. A quantum machine could pick the same lock in an afternoon. Banking, defense, your medical records, all of it. So the White House framed this as innovation, plus national security. Clean story, patriotic story. But here's what nobody in that room said out loud. The standards that order number 2 now forces on the entire government? IBM wrote them. 2 researchers at IBM Zurich, Vadim Lubashevsky and Gregor Seiler. They authored the 2 algorithms NIST picked as the national standard. NIST is the US agency that sets the official rules for encryption, right? So whatever NIST blesses, the whole government must use. And the winners were IBM's algorithms. So step 1. IBM wrote the rulebook. Now here's where it gets dark. Remember that laptop story from the start? The researcher was Ward Bulens, also IBM. The system he broke, Rainbow, was the leading rival to IBM's design. His paper didn't just dent it, it disqualified it. So IBM's own researcher killed IBM's only real competitor and cleared the runway. And by the end of this, you'll know the one signal that tells you if this whole machine holds or cracks. So the question is, who paid for all of it? $2 billion went to 9 companies. The single biggest slice went to IBM. Roughly $1 billion. That money builds out a new chip line, superconducting qubits, a foundry in Albany, New York. The rest got crumbs by comparison. Global Foundries got $375 million. Atom computing, D-Wave, Inflection, Psi-Quantum, Quantinuum, $100 million each. Rigetti got up to $100 million. Dirac got up to 38. But here's the buried clause nobody read. On May 21, 2026, 2 of those companies filed paperwork with the SEC, Rigetti and D-Wave. And inside those filings was a line called shares for cash. In plain English, in exchange for the federal money, they have to hand the US government actual stock. Read that again. The United States government is now taking ownership stakes in public quantum companies. That's not a grant, that's a quiet nationalization. Think about that for a second. You take the federal check and you hand back a piece of your company. Washington isn't funding these firms, it's buying into them. And here's why that matters. Watch the loop IBM just built. IBM writes the encryption standard. The executive order mandates that exact standard across every agency. IBM collects $1 billion to build the hardware. Then IBM turns around and sells the migration service to every federal agency forced to comply. Write the standard, win the mandate, take the money, sell the cleanup. That's a closed loop. Every step feeds the next one. And once you control the standard, you help shape the next executive order too. This isn't luck. This is architecture.
The first executive order launches a national effort to produce a quantum computer capable of performing important scientific calculations and to develop quantum-enabled sensors and networks in the next 5 years. And we're going to be investing in American quantum leadership like never before to stay ahead of the pack. We're way ahead right now, and we'll keep it that way. The second order I'm signing directs federal agency to transition to what is called quantum cryptography.
And the CEO of IBM, Arvind Krishna, was standing in the Oval Office when Trump signed. Now look who else was in that room. Ruth Porat, the president of Alphabet, Google's parent. Google was deep in the CHIPS Act talks, but Google said no. They refused the equity condition. They wouldn't give Washington their stock. So Google gets nothing. Google gives nothing. And then there's IonQ, left off the list entirely. So IonQ went out and spent $1.8 billion to buy a company called Skywater, a trusted American chip foundry. IonQ built its own factory, just to dodge government's equity hook completely. Two paths. One bends the knee, one buys its way out. Now here's where it really gets interesting. The order promises a quantum computer by 2028. But here's IBM's own published roadmap. 2028, they're still prototyping. Not a working machine, a prototype. Just the architecture. About 1,000 physical qubits. Nothing you could actually run. 2029, the first truly fault-tolerant machine. They call it Starling. 200 logical qubits. And the machine that can actually break encryption, Blue Jay, isn't due until 2033. That's the one with 2,000 logical qubits. The one that snaps RSA in half. So the order says 2028. IBM's own engineers say 2033. That's a 5-year gap on the company's own paperwork. So the company holding the billion-dollar check can't deliver what the order promises on time. That's fracture 1. Fracture 2 is worse. The whole point of Order 2 is to protect data from a future quantum attack. But the attack is already here. It's called Harvest-Now-Decrypt-Later. You steal the encrypted data today. You can't read it yet. You just wait for the quantum machine to arrive. Then you unlock all of it. A Chinese state group called Typhoon is already inside US power grids and water systems. They've been quietly siphoning out encrypted network data for years. And back in 2015, the OPM hack stole the security clearance files of millions of US personnel. Spies, soldiers, their fingerprints, their families, their finances, all encrypted, all sitting in a vault somewhere. So when Q-Day finally hits, those files don't expose old secrets. They expose people who are still in the field. The data's already gone. We're just waiting for the key. Now zoom all the way out. 2 of those 9 companies aren't even American. D-Wave was born in Canada. Dirac is Australian. Both were national champions. Funded by their own governments, so when Washington takes equity in them, it's quietly absorbing Canadian and Australian quantum technology. Ottawa and Canberra aren't happy. They're just being polite about it. And China is running the exact same playbook on both tracks. Track 1. Build the quantum weapon. Hefei National Lab. Top priority in their 5-year plan. Track 2. Build their own quantum-proof encryption, their own national standard. So here's the real prize nobody's naming. Whoever sets the global encryption standard controls the locks on the entire internet. Right now the world is split. America has one standard, Europe has another, China has a third. Think of it like 3 countries building 3 different locks, and none of the keys fit each other's doors. If NATO can't agree on one standard, every secure line between them has a seam, and a seam is exactly where an attacker pries. This isn't a science race. It's a fight over who owns the master key. So where does that leave you? Here's the one signal to watch. Forget the headlines. Forget the ceremony. Watch the 2028 milestone. That single deadline is the tell. It's the one date the whole story rests on. If IBM quietly misses that deadline, and they almost certainly will, then this entire order was never about a machine. It was about locking in the standard and the contracts before anyone noticed. Watch 2 more things. Watch whether NATO adopts the American standard or splits off on its own. And watch those government equity stakes in Rigetti and D-Wave. If Washington ever unwinds them, That tells you the nationalization was always temporary leverage, not real strategy. And keep one eye on IonQ's new factory coming online. If the company that owed Washington nothing ships first, the whole equity playbook looks like a mistake. That's your signal. So strip away the moonshot language. This was never a race to build the future. It was a race to own the lock on it. One researcher, one laptop, one cracked competitor, and $1 billion standard nobody voted on. So here's my question for you. Who actually wins the quantum race? IBM, standing inside the government, holding the standard and the check, or IonQ alone, with its own factory, owing Washington nothing? Drop your pick in the comments, IBM or IonQ. And if you want to track who really controls the master key, follow along.